Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Desk Drop. Now, this week, I'm super excited. I've got someone who inspired me to get into ABM, and potentially someone who inspired me to start Reach Desk. I've got Sangram Vajre, co-founder and chief evangelist at Terminus. Sangram, how are you?
I'm fantastic, man. Well, thanks for having me, and super cool to hear that I played a small role in getting you going on your journey. That's fantastic.
Mate, more than a small role, I can tell you that. So look, you've got a glittering CV. You've seen a lot of success with Terminus. You've written two books now. Most recent one, ABM, is B2B. I understand you might be working on another one potentially. How do you manage it all? How do you actually do all of that?
Oh, I honestly try to do. I think it happened about maybe 3 years ago, where as a co-founder, you get to do everything, right? And you have to do everything. And I hit a wall and realized that I can't do it all, and I'm not good at all. And it was a very much a personal experience of recognizing that I need to figure out what my strength is and what I call is a gift. Everyone has it, and focus on that. And I'm very fortunate and blessed that my other co-founders and the board also recognized that and supported me all along the way. So I moved from having almost having so many people reporting into me, marketing, sales, customer success, because I was on all these conversations from day one, to like literally having literally zero direct reports, and moved into a role of saying, look, what I love or what I'm good at and what I feel gifted at is that I'm very passionate about this problem. And if I can talk about this problem without the overhead of product for me, I actually can help us create a bigger market. And that is a difficult sell, as you can imagine. But I've been trying to sell that I still try to do that because I keep getting caught into this personal challenges around that. But that's really what I realized is I'm good at writing books. I'm good at creating narratives. I'm passionate about solving this problem. And I genuinely get on calls and say, hey, I don't care if you buy Terminus or not. Let me just talk about ABM because I think it will change the way it will give you business outcomes that will help you get promoted in your organization if you are trying to do that, or it's going to be the next wave of better relationship with your sales team and all those things. So I'm just very passionate about it. So what happened for me was, by not having the pressure of daily operations, I'm able to focus on the most important things that I'm good at, which is all these narratives and writing books. And for everything that I'm not good at, for example, the podcast that we run, it's outsourced to an agency. So I do have a great conversation, and that's it. I'm not writing a blog after it. Somebody else is doing all of those things. So I've just realized, let me just focus as much as possible on what I'm good at, and either delegate or outsource everything else. And I think that's the balance that I continue to struggle with and try to find as well.
That's very cool. I think you've got potentially one of the coolest jobs in SaaS at the moment. So hats off
I'm
to you.
pinching myself to keep it as long as I could, right?
That's awesome, man. So look, one of the things I wanted to really talk to you about today was, let's label it the pitfalls of ABM. I feel like account-based marketing is something that a lot of people talk about, right? But it's actually not as easy as it seems to get up and running and stuff like that. I suppose the first thing on my mind is, where do you see companies really going wrong here?
The number one area where I see hundreds of companies go wrong at is announcing they're going to do ABM. And that might just sound so ridiculous because I wrote two books at ABM, and I'm glad I wrote the second book, ABM is B2B. I think because it's just a better, smarter way of doing marketing and sales. So the worst thing that we as marketers, if you're a marketer listening to this, this is like, sit down, listen in, because this is going to give you some therapy and shock, and you might hate me, which is okay, but later on, you might recognize that it took me 10 years of therapy to say some of these things. Number one, I think the value of marketing is defined by sales, and I wrote that about in the book. And I think every marketer needs to start absorbing that as a key ingredient to their success. Your value as a marketer is to either incrementally or exponentially grow sales. If that's not what you're doing, you're not driving business outcomes. You're going to get fired in a few weeks, months. It's just going to happen. And one of the key areas where companies fail And why they fail specifically for ABM is because they go and say, oh, we're going to launch ABM campaign. And that means that we are going to change the metrics, change the way we do things, and change is hard for everybody. And you haven't proved anything. And we as marketers are very good at announcing what we want to do as opposed to announcing the results of what just happened. So if they can stop saying we're going to launch ABM, if we can stop pushing people in a direction where they're not sure about, go and find your Jill and Sally and John, your sales people that you have your buddies with, and make them wildly successful by using the ABM. We can go through examples of it on areas that you can actually deliver value on in almost immediately, like almost within weeks for them, and let them be your advocates to their sales team and to the executive team that we want marketing to do more of this. That's how you bring relationships and results forward. But too often I see hundreds of companies, the biggest pitfall becomes that they go and say, hey, we're going to launch this new thing that's going to change the world. And everybody says, okay, it's been a week, nothing has changed. It's been a month, nothing has changed. And that is what causes ABM a lot of times and the credibility of the marketer to go down the drains.
Yeah, and I've been there before. A couple of years ago, the thing that I learned was that it really has to be within the C-suite. The CEO has to buy into it, right? If you don't get that buy-in from the beginning, you're in trouble. I think the terminology.
I'll contest that, Alex. I'll contest that because that's not necessarily true as far as I've seen. I think the CEO has no other purpose. The job is chief executive officer, right? Like the job is to just be executive. They're not master at anything. They're not supposed to be good at marketing or sales or CS. Like everybody else has a role and a function. They're supposed to be an executive, right? So their goal is to see results and success. So the CEO doesn't care if it's called ABM or ABX or whatever it is. So I think the success really depends on that one salesperson that you can help be super successful, and they close a 100,000 deal if that's the top of your, or $1 million deal, whatever that is. You help that one salesperson be super wildly successful using ABM program, and that person going and telling in the all hands that this is what marketing did for me. Not an ebook, not a webinar, not an event, but this is what marketing did to get me, help me win this deal. And without that, I wouldn't have won. That's what changes the executive and the CEO and everybody. That's what they want. Now, if you went around and try to convince the CEO this is important, the CEO is gonna, okay, well, if you think it's important, show me the results. And then you're all of a sudden on the defensive side. And what I'm really stressing on is let's be on the offense, which means don't announce it, the launch, announce the results. Big, and everybody, you'll start getting that buy-in.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that, by the way. When I said, like, we need to get the CEO buy-in, we didn't get it. It was like, just keep doing stuff, just keep doing stuff. And actually what we did is we did exactly as you said. Let's go and help sales. We chose 10 deals. Like, let's focus on those. And then it was like, wow, the velocity of those deals and the close rates were higher than normal. What did you guys do? And we spoke about it. And we realized that actually that discipline was better. And then all eyes were on us. And like, okay, let's do more of that. How do we scale it?
Yes.
It was an interesting realization. So that's one way to start, it sounds like, right?
Yes.
Get in the trenches with
sales. It's a huge way
sales.
to drive business outcomes. It's a huge way, like, I think we get out of the alignment, like BS that happens in most things. We go outside and we'll stop talking about MQLs and SQLs because, I ran marketing at Pardot, like I was at Salesforce, like that was my deal. But I've realized if you're doing ABM, all those metrics actually become vanity metrics that you don't need an SLA if you're working on the account that drives business outcomes and sales is all over it. You don't need to go and report a salesperson to say that person is not working on my leads. Well, their job depends on it. So why wouldn't they work on it? Well, because it's not in their account that is going to help them close that month or that quarter. Otherwise, they're going to get fired because of their quota. So I think a lot of it is just having the empathy to recognize that your leads are actually not driving business. What's driving business are the accounts that need to be closed this month or this quarter. That's what's driving business.
Very cool, man. Very cool. So that's one way to get things up and running. What do you think are the critical things at the beginning when, like, for businesses of any size that are looking to ungate all their content and get started with all this stuff. What are those key things that you're telling people must be done at the beginning?
Well, you mentioned, I think it was before the before recording, around the ABM is B2B book, and we shared the team framework in it. I honestly think people, I don't care if people buy the book or not, just take the team framework and deploy it, because I've seen thousands of companies use that even in the board conversation. So a quick refresher on that is it literally stands for target, engage, activate, and measure. Target, what accounts are we going to target? Engage, how are we going to engage? And we can double down on that because that is a key part of it. Activate the sales team. That is the part marketing automation oriented marketers have missed. They just keep engaging, meaning sending emails, but never activated the salespeople on the right account that's going to help them close deals that month or that quarter. And then obviously you measure them and reiterate that whole process. So this team framework, I've seen it, Alex, used in board conversations where people will say, the CMOs will go and say, we're using the team framework. Here's how many accounts we need to focus on. And by the way, it's also great for a conversation with the CFO, where you're saying what tools, why we're marketing buying 25 different tools. And then you can literally put this team framework in front of them and saying, to target, we're using these tools. To engage, we're using this tool. To activate and measure, we're using these tools. I think it has so many bad product outcomes that just using that, and if people just take that out of this conversation, they will probably look super smart in their team when they say, oh, let's just go through this as a process.
Yeah, it's very cool. And for everyone listening, you all need to read this book. It's an absolute game changer. I read it twice, more recently on a beach in Italy because I wanted a refresher on it. But it's got so much advice, man, and I'm so glad that you wrote that.
Thank you.
So flipping it to where we're at in the world at the moment, you and I mean, I'm in my bedroom at the moment, right? You're at home anyway. How have you seen ABM like dramatically change in a remote world?
Yeah, it's in the beginning of this year, Alex, I was kind of shippish about it. I was like, I'm not gonna like talk about this in a way that maybe rub people away, the wrong way. That ABM is important because in hearts of hearts, I felt that as bad as the situation is right now, if any marketers is forced to figure out an efficient way to spend their dollars, I cannot imagine a better way than ABM. But then I was trying to like, okay, but I don't need to go and like have a loudspeaker and say that because it just didn't feel genuine or not sensitive enough to the things that were happening. But then as I went through and I saw results of companies who did that, I felt like I owe it to everyone to now go and openly say that, hey, look, I don't care if you use Terminus or not. You gotta figure out a way to change the way you do marketing and sales. And if you're not using any of the ABM principles that literally could be pulled together in this team framework, then you're either losing money for your company, either you are not creating great alignment with your sales team. If you don't know what metrics to report on, if any of those are your top issues, then doing ABM can literally help you resolve those. So I feel like in this era, more important than ever before, if you want to spend efficient dollars, I can imagine doing anything different than that. So I feel like now I'm on the offense on that, and I'm saying, well, you better start thinking about this because it's going to probably save your job.
No, I think it's no secret that ABM, particularly right now, we're coming up to the end of 2020, sorry. It's become even more prominent than before.
Yep.
Right. Everyone is removing a lot of things that perhaps were just there because they thought it should be there. A lot more sort of generic paid advertising, and a lot of events marketing was just used generically as well. But it's no secret that account-based marketing is becoming more prominent now. And one of the reasons why I believe is because we need to be more careful with our budgets. This wasteful approach to marketing is one of the big reasons. And actually the CFO is the one who's dictating a lot of it. So I think that's
a great point. That's a great point, Alex. It's so interesting you bring that up. And as I said, I'm going to be wrong. Like there's nothing like I'm seeing this literally last week. And I think, is it last week or maybe Monday this week, where I'm seeing CFOs fully involved in every single budgetary decisions. Now, of course, they've always, it's a CFO, there's their job, but they have been pretty lenient with marketing dollars, or saying, okay, the things are going fine, what budget you need, as long as you can talk through it, it's fine. But now CFOs are actually going in and saying, show me, right? And that's a very different conversation. It's really hard to show a CFO open rates and click-through rates and all these other vanity metrics, and the CFO is like, all right, I'm waiting for you to show me the revenue. I'm waiting for you to show me the pipe, right? Like, I'm happy to give you the money, just show me. And I think that idea of Jerry Maguire, like, show me the money part, is as real as it possibly can be. So you bring up a really good point, Alex, and I think CFOs are way more engaged in this conversation today, and to get their buy-in, which is what every CMO and marketer needs to learn. You have to learn to speak their language, and guess what? Their language is still the same: pipeline and revenue.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think we're starting to see. We sell to mainly B2B marketers, right? There's a sales element to it, but CFOs are sometimes coming onto our calls saying, "Show me the ROI," and it's not. Luckily, we don't work in here's how many leads you're going to get. It's always revenue. And that's a conversation that's really hard. And that's almost a total separate topic. What kind of tactics are you seeing being employed differently? We used to have exec roundtable dinners as part of some ABM programs. You'd have, obviously, direct mail would be sent to offices. You'd serve ads to certain IP addresses, that kind of stuff. How have you seen that change? And how are you guys helping people fix that?
Yeah, it's today, I feel a lot of our dreams as marketers are coming true, of this ubiquitous world where we imagined that we can run an ad to certain people and certain accounts. And when they come to your website, wouldn't it be nice if they came to a page that is all about them? Wouldn't it be nice if there was a chat box that engaged with them? Wouldn't it be nice if the sales emails that went to them were very specific and that were consistent with all these messages? Wouldn't it be amazing if they also got a direct mail that was, again, on brand and on time in the process, and not based on a campaign, based on where the customer or future customer is? Well, guess what? It's actually possible. Now, I would say that it's possible for the 1% companies who are actually doing it today. And a year from now, if Alex, we did another podcast, let's say we earmarked and did it again next November, I think you and I would be saying, oh my God, this is the most common thing happening right now. So we marketers ruin everything that works. So because we do it over too much of it and we try to scale it. So it's going to stop working at some point. But right now, the 1% companies that are doing that, it's working amazingly. And might I say that it's also working at a fraction of the cost of what you might need for marketing to do. So let's just go through an example. And Snowflake is a great example. They just went public. They just did that over and over again. And they had interns to do that, which is, again, another way to say that this is doable. You don't need a rocket scientist to do it. You need people to just do it. Like, that's it. They gotta just have the mindset to do it. So they run ads to a specific company, one-on-one, which is branded about that company, goes to snowflake.com / the name of the company, where 90% of the content is the same, 10% is different. They run across 400 or 500 companies now, and they have interns who replicated those pages. When somebody comes to that page, you don't need to have a form, because the person coming to that page came from the ad or an email from the sales team that said, I created a page for you. So you need no sneaking forms, right? You don't need anybody's mother's maiden name. You really don't. People come to that is they're not landing on a product page, they're landing on their page. And what we see is that then they share that with their colleagues in the company, and we see more people now coming to that particular page. That triggers a sales alert that tells the salesperson that, hey, Alex, somebody from your account is on the website. Well, guess what Alex is going to do? He's going to now prioritize that account and start engaging with them. Maybe he will trigger a direct mail and say, oh, now that one of my accounts are paying attention to my emails and things, let me just send them a direct mail to get the conversation even to the next level. So all these things are actually possible. Guess what? That's why we acquired Ramble Chat. Imagine now a chat box appear on the website and recognizes that company and saying, hey, Snowflake, thanks for coming on board. Let us know how I can help. Here's your rep if you want to talk to somebody, and that connects directly with a Calendly link or something. So I guess where I'm going with all this, and I'm starting to see this, is This level of one-to-one experience was a pipe dream. And I've seen 10 years ago people talking about it at Dreamforce and others of experiences. And B2C obviously have been thinking and doing some of it, but B2B never had a chance to do it until now. And now we're forced to do it. And I think it's for the good of it.
And I love that final point. Because I used to sell to B2C retailers and e-commerce, and they got to do all the cool stuff. And you see what Nike's doing, and then B2B marketers are like, I'm so jealous. But what you've just described is actually the B2B space moving towards that direct to consumer experience where it's frictionless, where it's instant, where it's not painful. You don't have to have forms, and you can deliver on that now. It's just from my understanding, the reason why a lot of businesses can't do it is because they got to rip out so much legacy stuff and start from scratch, and they don't want to go through the pain of it. And I think some businesses are a bit afraid of that, which is understandable. So, mate, we're coming up for time a little bit, and you've almost already touched upon it. But the future of ABM, where do you see it going?
Well, I wrote ABM is B2B, so I hope that stays the future as like it is B2B. But I think, and this goes to like the next thing that I'm working on right now, I feel like there is even a more important conversation to be had. And again, it will take years to just like ABM took about 5 years for companies to really start recognizing it. It's still probably less than 5% based on Forrester and Gartner. So it's going to take time for companies to fully adopt and make it as part of their marketing and sales experience. But we always tend to forget customer success. And we always tend to undervalue the importance of recognizing what customers' behavior, retention, and all that drives into the net new accounts. And the more we understand that, the better we would actually get at that position. So in many ways, I think where my head is and where I'm starting to think about is what is the next narrative and the next idea around better B2B? Now, ABM is B2B, but what is better B2B? And better B2B, I think, is a better go-to-market strategy. And a go-to-market strategy goes beyond marketing, goes beyond sales, and actually brings customer success in the fold. And that is something that I'm toying around, I'm testing around and thinking around and talking to a ton of people to see how they're doing it. Because a lot of times, some companies are already doing it. They may not call it that. They may not see it that way. Just like ABM is not new. The biggest companies that had $1 million deals always did ABM, but they didn't call it that way. They didn't have a process that could scale a little bit like we just talked about. So to me, an interesting way to look at the next wave would be, well, what are the best-in-class companies doing to drive a go-to-market strategy?
Very, very interesting. I think you mentioned customer success, customer experience is part of that. The obvious thing is that we know so much about our customers. We know way more about our customers than we do with the prospects or the target accounts that we're going after in the first place. And it's 5 times easier to sell to them. So it's a smart place to be thinking about for the future. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm sensing a third book coming along here.
Well, I'm working on it. We'll see. I don't have all the answers, just like I didn't have all the answers for the last one. But I think when you get on a journey and ask people and have curiosity, I think answers starts appearing in front of you.
That's super cool, man. So look, 2 final questions really, and I always ask these. What's the best thing anyone's ever sent you physically in the mail? Like, you must have received quite a few things. What have you been sent that you still get excited about?
I'll show you real quick. This is if somebody's listening on podcast, you probably can see it, but this is Uberflip sent this box when they did a Connect experience. They had name engraved and the date and time, and then they had a wine bottle in it, but then they have a video that was playing, and it was a personal video for me. So it was really, my kids have played on that video like 1 million times in the house, and it stayed there. So it was a handcrafted thing done. It's like something that you will keep on a table or in your shelf. So I feel like this was one of the best ones. Hat tip to Randy Fresh who sent this.
That's very, very cool. So that's it. Looked like it contained something else in there, a bottle of wine or something, perhaps.
Yeah, it had a bottle of wine, which
But that's no longer there. Someone's
That's
had the joy of
obviously
drinking
no
it.
longer there. Yes.
Awesome, man. Look, and the final thing I always like to ask is, what would you tell B2B marketers is the most important thing they need to stop doing right now?
Ooh, I think we should stop collecting uh, or looking at email addresses and names as a free to bombard them with a whole bunch of things that they don't care about. I think every touch point that we as marketers do, that might be email or whatnot, either builds your brand or kills your brand. And once we start recognizing that, I think we will probably send less spam, we'll probably send less emails, and we'll probably send more thoughtful and meaningful things to people that are worthy of their time and respectful to them. So what I want to leave everybody with is like asking yourself the question, are you building your brand with your marketing programs, or are you killing it?
Nice. Love that summary. I think for anyone that's listening and watching, that's a pretty powerful statement. I'm certainly going to take that away and think about every touch point that we deliver. Think about whether we're killing our brand or we're building it. Sangram, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. As I said, you've inspired me personally to sort of get into ABM and still read a lot of your content to sort of help me keep on top of things. So appreciate you joining me, man. We'll be sending you something as a small thank you for joining us today. But for everyone listening and watching, we'll be catching you up soon with some more of the best in class marketers to help you really kind of level up a gear. But thanks a lot for joining me, man. It's been a real pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Thanks everybody for
Cheers,
listening.
man.
Cheers.